Hey y'all, welcome back to A Dash of Gratitude. My name is Beth, and today we are preparing 3 recipes straight from the Great Depression era. I'm also including a recipe for no-knead bread. All of these recipes use simple ingredients, they're very easy to put together, and they're so tasty. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to put together is the no-knead bread. You'll want to make sure you mix the dough on the day before you plan to bake it. This recipe wasn't actually in the results when I searched for ideas to make from the Great Depression, but it uses simple ingredients and is an easy bread recipe that makes a delicious, beautiful, and rustic loaf of bread. I also want you to know that I will include all the recipes from today's video in the description box below. It was about a year and a half ago when I decided that I wanted to learn how to make bread. And this is the very first recipe that I tried. It is so satisfying to put together this simple bread, and it's so tasty. It's very easy to make. It looks absolutely beautiful, and it's quite impressive to make for your family and just have sliced, homemade, fresh bread on the table. As you mix this dough, it will form a shaggy dough, and you just have to trust this process that it will come together and it will make a beautiful bread. After you mix the dough, you're going to cover it and let it sit for 18 to 24 hours. You'll want to put it in a place that is free of any drafts and maybe somewhere that's a little bit warm. I just set mine on my kitchen table, kind of near a window that I knew the sun was going to come in the next day. It's really, don't stress about it. It's a no fuss bread, really. You want to be sure that your oven is preheating to 450 degrees while you're forming your dough into a ball. And as you preheat your oven, please remember to put your Dutch oven inside so it can warm up with your oven temperature. Because this bread is going to bake inside your Dutch oven, inside your oven. All the details will be in the recipe below. Now that you have your dough in the form of a ball, you're going to gently cover it and just let it rest on the countertop until your oven is finished preheating. At that time, you're going to take your Dutch oven out of your oven. Make sure you're using your oven mitts. That thing is hot. And you're going to line your Dutch oven with parchment paper. Now, the parchment paper that I'm using in the video is a clean piece of parchment paper, but a little trick to get it to do right in this process is to just kind of wobble up the paper so that it will more easily allow the dough to fall to the bottom inside the oven, inside the Dutch oven. So anyway, then you're going to cover your Dutch oven. You're going to put the lid back on and put it back into the oven to finish baking. After the bread has been in the oven for 30 minutes, you're going to remove the lid and just allow your bread to continue baking for 15 additional minutes. This will make sure that the outside crust gets nice and brown and toasty. This is such a good bread. Oh my gosh, you guys, it smells so good. It is such a good bread. I really hope you'll try to make this. And as tempting as it will be to go ahead and slice into that warm bread, you really need to let it cool completely so that it can continue baking fully all the way through. This next recipe is for Great Depression meatloaf, and I found it just by searching on Pinterest. There were a few different variations, as with all recipes, there were a few different variations, but anyway, today Serena is helping me out. So we're starting out with 5 slices of regular old white bread and 1 can of evaporated milk. You're going to let the bread soak in the milk, and then you're going to add your salt and pepper. We are doubling our recipe today because we wanted to make sure we would have leftovers. Serena is going to top hers with barbecue sauce, and I'm going to top mine with ketchup. So they're going to be slightly different, but mostly prepared exactly the same. My kids are always around and they love to help in the kitchen. They love to pop in and see what's going on. So, Robbie, of course, wanted to come on in and make sure you guys saw him today. He was curious what we were cooking, and I guess bread soaked in milk wasn't his idea of something that looked delicious. Look at his face, you guys. After it all came together and dinner was served, he was quite happy and he ended up being a part of the Clean Plate Club. The whole family was actually. This whole meal was so delicious. I stepped out of the kitchen for a moment and Serena took it upon herself to entertain you with a little dance number, so I had to leave it in. We mixed together the bread and the milk with the salt and pepper, and now we're just adding in some onion. I had some pre-chopped, and I think the recipe calls for a 3/4 cup of chopped onion. We just kind of added what looked right, and now we're putting in our ground beef. We happen to buy our ground beef from a local farm, and it is the best ground beef I have ever had in my life. I will be happy to link that farm below if you're anywhere near the Georgia, South Carolina area. It's worth checking out. We've been so happy. The quality is just top notch and always delicious. Here we are mixing together the milk, the bread, the salt, the pepper, the onion, and the ground beef. And the best way to do that is just to get in there and work it with your hands. You just want to make sure it's really well incorporated all together. After you get your meat mixture fully combined, you're going to press it into a loaf pan. And then if you want to, you can top your meatloaf. You can add ketchup, you can add barbecue sauce, you can add bacon on top. All of that is optional. And then you're going to bake it in a 350-degree oven. And the recipe says for an hour, but it probably took ours an hour and a half, give or take a little bit, to really come up to temperature. So just, it might depend on your own oven. Whenever I have made meatloaf before, the recipe usually calls for eggs to help everything bind together. So I was a little bit unsure how this was going to turn out. But I'm not really sure if it was the evaporated milk or what, but this was definitely not dry. It sliced really nicely. The flavor was so good. And my husband even was like really impressed with how it turned out and definitely wants us to make it again. This next recipe is a very basic, simple salad. And I found the recipe on a YouTube channel that I came across a few years ago. The name of it is Depression Cooking with Clara. If you've never been to that channel, I cannot recommend it enough. I've been really wanting to try some of her recipes, and I intend to do so and film and share with you guys whenever I do, but I don't know what it is about Clara. She was a girl during the Great Depression, and she shares her recipes as well as stories from that time. And I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's, how she reflects on the tough times. Maybe she reminds me a little bit of my own grandmother. I don't know. But her channel is a treasure, and I cannot recommend you go look at it enough. I will link it below. It's just so good. So anyway, this is one of her recipes. And what appealed to me about it is that, it's not made with a store-bought dressing. It's made with a very simple olive oil and a lemon juice. And, it's just a nice way to make your own at home. Very simple. And it was delicious. Everybody liked it. It's worth noting that Clara's channel is run by her grandson, as she is no longer living. But it's just such a good channel. There is so much that we can learn from our older generation. And the people who were living during the Great Depression, they're becoming fewer and fewer, and we can learn so much from the hardships that they endured during the Great Depression. The fact that Clara's stories are captured on YouTube and that her family so freely shares those with the world, it's just really a treasure. So the video where Clara shares this particular salad recipe is from the Poor Man's Feast video, and she does recommend that you get in there and mix it with your hands, that it's just better that way. And I forgot that she added oregano to her salad. I probably would have done the same if I would have remembered, but it was still good without. This delicious meal came together so beautifully, and our whole family really enjoyed it. Serena and I also put together a dessert. It's a chocolate depression cake. I found the recipe on Pinterest, so let's get to it. You're going to start out by measuring a half a cup of cocoa powder, and to that you're going to add 2 cups of boiling hot water or hot coffee. Now we used water, but I'm a little bit curious how it would turn out with coffee. I bet it would be really tasty. Once you stir those together, you're going to set them aside and then put together the rest of the ingredients. In a medium-sized bowl, you're going to combine 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. You're going to add 1 teaspoon of salt and whisk those together. Next, you're going to add 2/3 cup of oil. And in our house, we mainly use olive oil whenever a recipe calls for oil. Then you're going to add, let's see what comes next. Oh, vanilla. You're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And then you're also going to use 2 cups of sugar and combine all those ingredients. Now, I'll be honest, at this point in the recipe, I mean, you see how these ingredients are coming together. We just weren't sure how this thing was going to turn out. So, anyway, I got in there with my mom muscles and powered through mixing this together a little bit better, but it was so crumbly. It does eventually come together, but I was skeptical. So was Serena. Here you're going to add the flour mixture to the cocoa mixture and then stir until thoroughly combined. After that, you're going to add the vinegar, put it in your baking pan, and then you're going to bake this cake in the oven for 25 to 30 minutes at 350 degrees. Here we're going to insert a toothpick. It's going to come out clean. This cake baked perfectly. It smelled so good. And then this recipe didn't come with a frosting recipe, but I read online in the comment section somewhere, a lady said that the way they frost this cake is the moment it comes out of the oven, they add chocolate chips to the top and they put it back in the oven for just a minute or two just to get the chocolate chips really soft. And then they spread it on top like it was a frosting. So we decided to try that and it turned out really well. I might add more chocolate chips next time. I just wasn't sure. There was no measurement in the comment, when she suggested this. But anyway, it turned out really nice and it was delicious. What I really liked about this frosting method was that it didn't require a fancy recipe. It's just another way that you can use what you have on hand. We usually have chocolate chips, so it was very easy for us to just whip it together. Anyway, I really love that when you can just use what you have on hand. That is usually my cooking style anyway, which also tends to be the theme of a lot of the Great Depression recipes. They just did the best that they could with the things that they had on hand. They made it work. Anyway, this was delicious. The whole meal from start to finish. So, so good. Is it good?
Wait, let me try the icing. It's good. I like it.
Should I make it again?
Definitely.
I hope you found today's video helpful and encouraging that even with the most basic of ingredients, you can put together a delicious and satisfying meal. Thank you so much for adding a dash of gratitude to your day, and I'll see you on the next video.